3. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion.
Tracy,
Second.
second by Doug. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Minutes are in here. Oh, here we go. We got another one.
You can have that.
Approval of the minutes from the January 3rd meeting.
I'll move.
Okay, Tracy, the second.
I'll second.
Okay, Brad. If nobody's seen anything, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Public comment. We have nobody in the gallery today at all. You can tell it's cold. We have no other members here. And the wildlife man is not here yet. So do we want to jump into any of these ordinances or not? Or do you want
Yeah,
to?
I'll shoot all the BOA stuff until Malia comes
Okay,
in, but the rest of it I can start going through. Yep.
well, let's start going through it then.
Okay.
That's see which ones we want to tear apart or leave together.
Just to frame up today's discussion, last time I brought up all of the considerations for amendments. And what I'm gonna do today is, instead of going through all of that again, just focus on the stuff where I was asking for your thoughts and opinions. And then if there's anything else beyond that that you guys want to bring up, please do so after we have that discussion. That way we can have a little shorter discussion maybe. That sounds good. First thing I want to mention is that all the numeric changes there in blue text, I'm assuming those are all fine to go through and update and showcase that they're changed in the ordinance for the public hearing. That you mentioned, right?
Yeah, I think so. Do we want to take one of these at a time? I mean, do you want to take one ordinance or you try to hit?
Yeah, I'm just making two blanket statements about
Okay, the blanket.
numeric
Okay.
changes, and then the green text that was stuff that you had already adopted previously, but wasn't in the old versions of the
Okay.
ordinance. I had that highlighted last time. I'm just gonna be that's just gonna be black text going forward because it's already adopted by, so it's not part of the public hearing for
Okay.
amendments here. And then, yeah, I'll go through the comprehensive or the land use ordinance first, and then shoreland and the BOA if Malia's here. So. All right. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is on page 7 of the ordinance. I guess, Claire, if you can bring up the ordinances, the comprehensive use ordinance.
Tom for the general.
Yep, that one, general. Yep.
General. Page 7.
Yeah, it's the definition. There you go. Yep. And for this discussion, those pictures that I sent you, if we can bring those up to just.
Let's see the pictures that show.
So in defining a retaining wall, we have, can only be one layer of rock or any other materials, that kind of thing. Can't be stacked on each other. And this is some pictures that have been taken by our zoning folks to show that this is technically not a retaining wall by our definition, but it's definitely holding earth and material back. And there's some rather large boulders that are being used to make a wall-like structure without it being fitting our definition. So trying to address this scenario a little bit better than we are right now.
Is this picture though a lake shore too?
Yes, yeah.
So that should fall under a different definition, I would hope. That first 35 feet and all that, doesn't that go to
No,
how it doesn't?
Eric's understanding is that that's if you're lakeside, like they deal more with the riprap that's
Yep.
like
Well,
within,
that was right on the shoreline, wasn't it?
right, but it was back into the property too. It was holding back the earth on the,
See a deck up there, yeah.
There's the water, there's that. Okay.
Yeah, but that's within the shoreline then.
It's within that 35 feet of the shoreline of the high water mark. So that should fall under DNR also.
Right, the DNR does have some regulations there, but like our stormwater erosion control ordinance is more geared towards, it's just more geared towards, you know, other things that we do with, do you want me to grab Eric? Is that what you want? I mean, he thought you were just gonna have a conversation with him, Kim, but
Oh, I see. Okay. No, I think we need Eric up here for
Yeah.
this one, because I think this, to do this, you have to have a DNR permit. You have to go to the Lake Association. You got to do a lot of things to get to there. Where this point is at.
so,
I can Teams him if you want.
thanks, Shabana.
So I'm just thinking, okay, let's, we can come back. Do you have more pictures? We'll come back to this.
We can come back to this.
Come
when
back
Aaron
to
gets
that
back
one.
up here. I can just,
I think we're stepping on some toes
Yeah,
getting
no,
into that.
without a doubt.
This is
Well,
not-
anyway, in the general.
Yeah.
Very good.
we want Logan in here too.
Here's Eric right here,
Oh,
like calling him into the,
good morning.
You could sense that we were summoning you.
Yeah, right here. When you look at that picture, how many permits do they need?
Well, DNR permit does allow, I believe, 200 feet of rock riprap without a permit. So, I mean,
there's no regulation.
there is a certain linear feet that a permit is not needed for rock riprap. And this is not covered under our stormwater and erosion control ordinance.
It is not covered.
No.
You think it should be?
All right, thanks again. The intent of the stormwater and erosion control ordinance is more for pervious surface, large, construction, excavation, commercial type sites.
It's a
And
pretty large construction site with that
Looks like it's
machine there and how much is tore up.
I agree. I agree.
Okay,
So in our zoning definition, if we change the zoning definition, it would be, you know, a regulation would be then in place. Because right now with the current definition,
well, I can see
that's
there's,
what we're trying
it's
to
already
address.
box high.
Yeah, this,
Three.
some of the other ones that they were talking about,
Get
Yeah.
higher.
they moved back, you know, like this far.
Yeah.
So there's technically not stacked on top of each other, but you're still,
It's a
It's-
play on words.
yeah, it's still like, the functionality is still for it to be a wall, you know what I mean? Or-
Yeah,
The jurisdiction of this material below the ordinary high water mark is Wisconsin DNR.
below it, but above it,
Well, and stabilization of the shoreline too. That's
of
a,
that first 35 feet. But you can go outside of that, of the viewing corridor and still put riprap. Is that what we're saying too? I mean, 200 feet, most people have a 100-foot lot, so you have a 30-foot viewing corridor.
I will say that this is a little bit above and beyond the shoreline stabilization of rock riprap. So
Okay,
I'd have to look into it deeper to see what other, policy enters in here, but
okay.
if we're looking at the rock riprap and that portion of it, that would be DNR. And it's possible if there's more than a half acre of disturbance there, that could fall into our stormwater and erosion control ordinance, but
But it would fall under,
residential is not included into that ordinance.
what do you say for a slope where that machine's sitting? 12%?
I'd say greater than that.
Okay, so then they're at that stage two. Or if the slopes are so great, you have to do something too.
If they're coming in for permits, Kim.
What?
That's one, if they're coming in for,
Yeah, they come in for a permit. When you have slopes greater than that you have to have something. I mean, just about every other county I work in has that. I mean, you pull the map up and it's hatched red and stuff where all the steep slopes are that you have to try to stay out of to do any work. I mean, not every lot on the lake is gonna be like that steep, but there's a lot of them that steep.
Yeah, that's a pretty sensitive site.
Yeah, okay. So the one rock, that's gonna be hard to enforce what it looks like. I mean, my God, that's,
Yeah, I mean, as we pan through some of the other pictures, you can,
okay, let's go.
this
through.
one shows obviously rocks stacked on top of each other, but I think the other one
Yeah.
showed a little bit different scenario. If we can pan through the next one. So these, you can see there's a little separation here.
Yep,
So they're technically not stacking them, but if you look at this whole feature right here. Would you call that a wall? No.
that is the same place. I mean, at least
Yeah, same. All these pictures.
if they wouldn't have clear cut it, it wouldn't be washed out so bad.
And so we're wondering too, you know, as part of the definition there, like for the single layer, according to some zoning folks, aside from these pictures, there's rocks, you know, like this tall out there that
Oh,
considering not being considered as a retaining wall. So I think last time it was just thrown out as like 18 inches, and then talking with staff, they were thinking like between the foot and 18-inch mark is probably appropriate. Because if you're gonna do just like a rock border or some other sort of thing for like garden or that kind of thing, you're not gonna use rocks that are this tall for that.
So if it's not a retaining wall, what are we considering it?
It's slabs. It looks
It's,
retaining wall to me.
I don't think we're considering it anything. It's just, it is this, they could do it. Let me see if I can get Logan.
Yes.
All right, but
We
even,
have to really.
even when you think about it, if they're landscaping and tearing this much up, at least these people have silt fence up and things like that. But I mean, there's other guys that wouldn't put the silt fence up because they don't need a permit and you can do whatever you want. And I think what's a landscape permit? $50, same as a tree one, I think. I mean, this is what a lot of the lakes people call about, you know, in the districts and all that, because this is what's happening with no permits around the lakes and in other places. So it's kind of a,
What about the fact that there's no buffer anymore?
that's, yeah.
You know, they've taken out the buffer, and if you take out the buffer, you're supposed to plant native plants and trees and.
Yeah, so there's no 30, yeah, even in the, and that's over 30 feet wide, it looks like, for the viewing corridor. Even.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
without
where
a
the
measurement,
stairs are should be the viewing corridor,
and 15 feet on each side.
yeah. You can have 10, 10, and 10, but
Yeah,
it doesn't appear that way.
no. So I mean, if the neighbors and stuff, obviously are gonna call zoning if they see something like this, they're gonna call Land and Water and say what's happening.
I believe so.
Yeah, I just can't think of anything in our stormwater and erosion control ordinance that would cover something.
You don't have anything there about retaining walls in the stormwater?
Not that I recall. Yeah,
Now-
or like stormwater retention ponds and, seeding vegetation, obviously silt fence.
And mutation.
Silt
Erosion
fence.
control measures on
Garden.
construction sites are
You know.
important, but
Okay.
the extent of the rock and that sort of,
But don't you have riprap in sites along roads and different places that you have to put riprap in if it's too steep and there's a lot of runoff? Is there?
It's not under.
that would be a construction specification for certain
For
projects.
certain project, okay, sure.
But again, is that engineered? Hard to say. I mean, an engineered plan would probably indicate or specify a rock type or
And spacing,
spacing or
yeah.
erosion control fabric underneath, something like that, but
So, but now isn't anything man-made considered a structure? How is that defined in DNR 150? Isn't that anything man-made as a structure? If you go out there, you put the stairs are considered a structure. You know, just about anything. You know, the gazebo with 200 square feet, all that. Would any of this apply under some of that NR 115 stuff? Or not?
Retaining walls are considered structures, correct?
For sure, yeah.
Yep. Mhm. And fire pits, right? If they're
Yeah,
permanent. Yeah.
So
the main question is, how is this not considered a structure or a permitted, and it's an example as we're moving through ordinance changes,
Yeah.
right? Trying to give it some clarity so that, because these are the type of calls staff get on, you know, complaints, you know, and so Logan is here, maybe he can answer.
So if we have nothing in place, they get to walk up and say, we can't do anything, do what you want. Is what, how you're
Well-
sitting. Because we don't have anything.
Yeah, anything that was like the one boulder high has always just been
Allowed.
under a landscaping permit.
Okay,
Not the retaining wall, as it's been done, is if you're not stacking anything, you're not creating a structure. So yeah, anything one boulder high has been considered landscaping.
but, okay, so they would
And
need a
then-
landscaping
Then they
permit.
take that and run with,
Yeah.
where if it's not stacked, so then they're considering not stacked being set it back 6 inches and it's
Sure.
not on top of each other.
Yeah, it's a play on those words.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're trying to clean
Decide.
up, I guess, because it obviously, I mean, this seems like it fits most of that definition of a retaining wall, holding back earth that's doing everything. But then when it says anything one boulder high is not a retaining wall, then it kind of contradicts. the first
Contradicts
part of
itself.
that.
Okay, sure, okay.
Maybe language, something to the effect of, terrace in series or something like that would help clarify and prevent this from happening. That.
Yeah, a terrace in
You know,
series.
if you've got one boulder high, but a series of 2 to 3 of those terraces, then it's considered a retaining wall.
Mhm. Yep, different
Permits are required.
Well, most of these have steps in them too. So I mean, the steps do need a permit. Don't they? In that 35 feet, they need a permit.
Not all of them do. They,
Well, a lot of them, yeah, I know there's a lot that don't do it, but okay.
You wanna go back to the definition, Claire? Page? So we can see what it says currently.
because
Retaining wall means an accessory structure, so it is a structure constructed to hold back earth. Retaining walls are usually constructed from stacked timbers, concrete block, planks, steel, and boulders, or boulders. A single row of these materials are landscaping borders. That's the current definition.
Yep.
One of the clarifications being sought is maybe a size to that single row in terms of height, and then maybe a series, terraces.
So they use rocks, because if you only put one timber, you'd have to have quite a timber, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
One high.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just concrete poured. I think we'd almost have to put a height on it, because if you can do, perhaps you can buy, those Jersey blocks are 30 foot high,
Yeah.
30 inches high.
Yeah, and just stack.
You don't stack
Just put them.
planks, steel boulders, okay.
Yeah, and after what Eric said, now, I mean, that maybe is why it's reading like that, because it does say a single row. So, I mean, if you terrace them, was that considered, that'd be multiple rows, right? So maybe it is. I mean,
that would be good language to add.
well, I think it might be why it's before it might have been interpreted as a single row, you know what I mean? They're all their own, but
They're all a
maybe
single
the
row,
idea
so
was- yeah,
if you read this, a single row could be 3 feet apart and 100 of them right up the hill.
so a little bit more.
So we need something like it, like you said, with terracing.
Series. Mhm.
In a series. What else? Do you think we should have something in that if it's over a certain slope? That it's, I mean, because most of these are gonna be where it's really steep. They're gonna have the series. If it's flatter, they might put one row in and, because some of the yards aren't that bad. They just put that one row in for the whole thing. But say if it's over a 12% slope.
Yeah, like that picture.
Like the picture, it's so steep that you have to do something.
Like how many rows can you have?
If you put a slope in there, would you confine yourself with someone giving you the data that it's 11% versus the 12%?
You always get that.
Yeah.
If
You
it was,
just
if you
left
put,
it a series
I'll
of-
go 41, yeah.
If you left it as a series of terrace, that it gives more interpretation by staff to look at the retaining wall and what the conditions are.
Then it's a bigger fight.
Those would all get permits, right then? Mhm.
The more defined, the better sometimes. Because then that's open up, because then the guy can say, okay, it's one row, how can you fight me? But if you got 10 rows,
Yeah.
boom, and all of a sudden you're on a 15% slope. One row, they're gonna have to be pretty tight together and stuff to hold it back. I should have looked at St. Croix has something, because they have that, if it's over a certain slope, that you almost have to have it engineered, because it gets a safety feature. You get a big rain behind that, all the walls. And if we show that cave in on a little balsam, that's exactly what happened. The road down to the boathouse washed out that they were using. So. But I think we have to define it good enough for staff to go out there and say, okay.
I think something, again, to think about, a single row set in series should be treated differently, because at that point, it is somewhat of a retaining wall
Yeah.
and serving that sort of purpose to,
do it.
yeah.
More than one row
stabilize the slope.
would be considered a retaining wall. More than one row to be considered a retaining, or is a retaining wall,
Set in series upslope could
Yeah.
be considered a retaining wall.
or will be considered a retaining. wall.
Yeah, it wouldn't even really depend on matter of the slope. It just set up
Yeah,
slope.
if you need
Because
more
then-
than
Yeah.
one, that would be considered.
Yeah, if it's more than one row, because otherwise there's a few spots that I got pictures too sent to me. They just have one row right by the house, coming out around the edge of the house. They have one row on the bottom and that, so then that would kind of cover that one. Or a raised garden or something, so maybe,
And you want to set a height limit on that single row
ooh,
of materials? Again, we could have a row of rocks this high.
up to or less than. Before I know, we put 12 to 18.
Your piece of paper is 11 inches, right? For reference, for a size of rock.
Yeah.
Right? Mhm.
I've seen retaining walls 24 inches high.
Mhm.
Some of those rocks are
That big.
30 plus. I mean,
Yeah.
they're a retaining wall in and of itself with one row. So
Yeah.
I do think that a rock size or diameter is important to.
have in there too. Okay, so with the series, I just thought because they have, like the building inspector, I think it's 24 inches, you have to have a railing. So if you stayed under that, it would kind of make common sense to people.
24 inches.
Because on a deck or anything, if it's over 24 inches off the ground, you have to have a railing.
That's
If that makes sense, to,
from a safety standpoint.
yeah. So the farthest you can fall is 2 feet.
You know,
So maybe up to 24 inches.
Is this just in the shoreland?
No, this is the general, this is
If I
everywhere.
put a rock in my yard, you're saying I would need a permit if it's over 30 inches.
If you're making a wall, if you're doing this, are you?
But I think we're headed down the wrong rabbit
Yeah.
hole here. I have
Me
no
too.
problem with this in the shoreline district. But out in the country,
No.
if I want to build this on a slope to the bottom of a hill and there's no water at the bottom of it, why is that our
Business.
business?
Exactly.
I mean, in the general, I mean, shoreland, yeah, but I mean, we're looking at a shoreland picture saying, we want to apply these rules in the middle of the country, in the middle of a 40
Yeah.
that has no water anywhere around it. And maybe it's a slope and maybe I want a rock retaining wall, just like that one there, but what's wrong with that if I'm in the middle of the country and there's no water around me? And I just want to get to the bottom of the hill. My only goal is to get to the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
I just,
Okay.
I don't, I mean, in
Or
the
if you're-
general, I do not see a problem with that picture
In the country.
in the country. I see a huge problem with it leading into the lake.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're looking at a picture of water saying, we're going to apply these regulations where there's no water. And I mean, there again, I don't think it matters. 50 years ago, my neighbor built a house and put a great big rock in it and then said, what in the world did I do that? Because I put a 6-foot rock in it. I picked rocks my whole life. I hate them. And now I got to mow around it. What do we care if somebody in the country puts a 6-foot retaining wall
Yeah.
up on the side of his 40 acres?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're chasing two
You're building a
different,
flat pad so you can back your equipment into your equipment shed or something, you know,
Right.
yeah,
I think we're getting way into the.
So this one then we should
Shoreland only.
Shoreline only.
Yeah, the whole difference is, the whole point of why this is an issue is because there's a setback of 75 feet to a structure in shoreline. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, there's not gonna be that setback. So I mean, if you build a retaining wall in general, as it is right now, you still need a permit because it's a structure on your property. But there's no rules as far as the 75-foot setback, so you could put that retaining wall wherever you want. That's where the issue is once you get to the shoreline, you can't have any structure within 75 feet besides the few that are exempt, such as open structures and everything. But that's why we're trying to
so both. are
figure out
same.
what can be allowed within that 75-foot without being considered a retained. It's the whole.
right.
So
But
it's
if
all
we put
shoreline.
it, if
So
we put it here, we're saying the same thing applies in the middle of the country as it
Yeah.
does on the lake.
But it's gonna be permittable out there no matter what, is what I'm saying, because you're not within that setback to the lake. This is allowing what's permittable and what's illegal.
But as a property owner, I don't want it.
But then I don't need to say it here if it's already permittable. Because
Well,
if we
they want
say
you
it
to
here
come in
and
and
we
get a
say it in
permit.
shoreland, then we're making it kind of illegal both places for me to put that retaining wall in the middle of the country.
Without a permit. He's saying you can come in and ask for me to put something on your land.
You shouldn't have to have a permit, as Brad is saying,
No, not in
No,
the
I
country.
agree.
on 5, 10, 20 acres. I mean, it's
Right.
1 acre. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, there's not, as long as I'm not headed into water.
Yeah.
Currently, it's required though, right?
It is, yeah.
Currently,
a
it's
structure.
required.
All retaining walls, if you're in shoreland or not,
Yeah.
that's a structure. So.
So on any given, okay, maybe this is the question. How many people come in for these in the country?
Yeah, not a ton, no.
See, I mean, we're just, I'm not for this either. So,
So this part
Application.
in general then, almost leave it like it is, or do we put a height?
Yeah, I think, I don't even think it needs a height because there again, what difference does it make?
Well, if they go over, it'll be a retaining wall if you stack to it, so a retaining,
But then they
Anywhere.
need the permit anyway.
yeah.
If an engineer says they can do it, if you're looking for the engineering part of this, saying that there's not gonna be any erosion to our lakes and stuff, then as long as they get that approval, they can use whatever means they need, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I'm talking general, that we don't want it in there. I think in shoreline, we're gonna wanna make it a little stronger so that picture doesn't happen.
So maybe this definition for areas in the general zoning area and then a more restrictive definition in shoreline
For sure,
about terracing and then height restriction.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Because that's what there's no 75 foot in this one. It's only in that one. So that's what would cover us there. The 75 foot, yeah.
Logan, one question that I had before is when you have your buffer outside of the viewing corridor, the first 35 feet, how can you, we're not talking the 75, we're talking the buffer. How can you take the buffer out? Is this not supposed to do anything?
No,
Do you have to replant?
yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know what that one was like. prior. But a lot of these lots where these are going in, the lot has already been,
For sure.
the viewing corridors, the whole lot, because it's been existing, yep. But yeah, you're correct. If someone comes in and they have 100-foot lot that's got the buffer complete, they can only do anything within their viewing corridor. You wouldn't be able to do, yeah, you couldn't clear any vegetation outside of there.
there.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll leave this one alone.
Leave this definition as it is in the general zoning section.
In the general then.
Update
Leave it alone, okay.
the retaining wall definition in the shoreline to include the terracing in series and a height restriction of 2 feet. Is that what you said?
Well, look at that one. Let's, what else do you got? Let's go through the general, finish that one up.
Okay, yep. Sounds good. Page 20, Claire. I just wanted to verify that during last meeting's discussion, we had talked about this provision of the 3-month period being different than the revocation period. This is what you guys said in the November 1st meetings, that you wanted to have a 3-month period here and a 12-month period in the revocation part.
And was that not a mistake? Because we had the wrong one, because it was 12 months.
It was 12 before you discussed it in November.
Yeah,
And then you changed it to 3 in November, at least the discussion.
I think before November it was 12.
Yes, it was. Yep.
It was, okay. So the first time was 12, we dropped it to 3, we wanted to put it back to 12, and it ended up at 3 again. And what's the other one?
You wanted it?
Yeah, 12 months, isn't it?
Yeah, the revocation part.
Revocation is 12, so what are,
The revocation is 12, but the 3 months was somebody who wasn't permitted ever, so not a revocation situation.
oh, yeah.
Saying
okay.
you have to show that you've been in compliance and not operating illegally for at least 3 months before you can apply for your initial.
Sure, okay.
So you gotta shut down for 3 months realistically.
Right.
I think we were,
You want them to have to shut down for a
we
year.
did that one pretty good, I think, didn't we? On the last one, did we have a consensus to leave it at that?
Yeah.
Because the two are different,
Yep.
I think. Nobody will say.
Yeah, any other thoughts?
Move it.
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Well, you think they should have it sooner, later?
No, I don't think we should do it at all. Come in and get a permit. They meet all the rules and they just need a permit, then come in and get the
Not
permit.
until they get caught, though.
Sure.
They can just, they can, you think people should just be able to break the law until they get caught and then fine them? Or no fine?
You can do a double permit fee like every other permit that you come in non-compliance with.
I just want to know where you stand.
We'll find out.
I know.
I have no problem with that. I mean, what other permits are we are we having those rules for?
They're waiting, they have to wait 3 months before they
Yeah.
can get it. I don't know that there's any others.
It's a double permit fee, right?
Yep.
Really no different.
What's the rest say? 3
Well,
months.
there's no incentive to get the permit at
Yeah.
that day, because otherwise, why would I come in and get a 180-day consecutive permit, 7 days consecutive to rent, when I can do it illegally and rent 365 days a year, 7 days a week, to as many people as I want?
And then when I get caught, it's just.
And then when I
another
get
double-
caught-
Talk about that if you want.
Huh?
I'd up those numbers too,
Which numbers?
for how many consecutive days they can rent. We're at like the strictest we can be.
We're at the state level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To save headaches is what we're doing, because otherwise you jump over
We're
that.
over the state level.
Now you're a business. You
Yeah.
know, 180 is that. Otherwise, you're gonna be considered commercial if you're over that.
Right.
So if
Yeah,
you're
I just-
commercial, then you have to be rezoned. So this keeps people from having to rezone right now.
Yeah, if there's not 3 months, I mean, I think it should be more than 3 months, but if there's not 3 months there, I'm never gonna pull a permit. There's no incentive whatsoever to come and get a permit until I get caught, and then maybe we'll just wait till we get caught the second or the third or the fourth time
Yeah.
before we actually get a permit.
Yeah.
Even if you put a penalty on it, $1,000, they don't care.
They
No,
don't care.
no,
No.
that's
No, monetary doesn't mean
a
much.
weekend.
Yeah, that's what.
You know.
Yeah.
Making so much a week, renting them out, that monetary doesn't matter. I
No.
mean, it matters, sure, if you made it 25,000, But you've got to do something like this if you're gonna do anything.
Consensus, yes. All right,
Yeah.
what's next?
Okay.
Order one.
Page 29. You have that in yellow. Very good. We left this in your hands, Supervisor O'Connell. You had me highlight this. Is there anything that you needed, or you found any clarification on this section that you wanted to discuss, or was it just related to the?
It was related to that one incident that we're not allowed to rezone the land out of farm, but that's
Plan
the
versus
procedure for that.
the plan versus the zoning?
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, I think I marked that because we had farmland preservation plan and farmland preservation district.
Yeah.
Was our problem on some of these. So
Yeah.
I just marked it so that we all know it's in here.
Okay. I'll unhighlight this then.
So yeah, that was just
So
the
they
highlight
can
that
take
we,
it out? Is that what you're saying? They
What?
can take it out of farmland preservation?
there is a way to get it out,
Yes.
but we can't just do it recklessly. There's a procedure for it. And there isn't very much in it anyway.
Sure. There's not much countywide. Okay. All right, page 36. Supervisor Olson, O'Connell, you had part A highlighted there. I didn't know if there was anything that you needed to discuss further on that.
No, I think that's just part of the conditions that we're letting kind of get by on some things, so. Then the other one was, well, yeah, Board of Supervisors on those, just to take out.
Yep. Does that look good? The red. If you let the new wording to reference the Environmental Services Committee, does that read as you think it should?
Yeah, because not to the full board. Yeah, these don't go to the full board.
And since you're a standing committee of the Board of Supervisors, I guess I was assuming that.
On behalf of the Board of
the board.
That line might have to come out.
You
The
want
additional information is required on behalf of the Board of Supervisors.
that to be the ESC too?
I know.
I think take that line out. Because the next line says the environmental services can employ independent technical to review materials submitted. Do we have a place where additions can be asked for? So it should say environmental committee, that additional information is required upon determination. And then that should be a period, where on behalf of the Board of Supervisors should be taken out.
Okay.
And then it would jump to the environmental service may employ technical. So it has the addition in that we can get technical experts. So we have both in there.
Okay. Noted. Let's see. Can you actually scroll up a little bit there? Next. Yep. Right here. Oh, a little bit more. A little bit higher. So here you go down. There you go. Wait, right there. Stop.
But the page number's wrong.
No.
What are you looking for?
Just a little bit higher there. Sorry about that.
Unreclaimed.
Go up this way. Other way.
Other way.
Other up.
Okay, so this part right here, I don't know why, it was highlighted in my copy, but it's not highlighted here. Under number 3, I think it probably goes with number 2, but this was eliminated when you guys made a change to the ordinance before, but I was just wondering if you still wanted to keep it. So this is, I think it goes with the part above number 2. It's talking about pre-existing mines in the limited and short-term mining activities. But just saying that if the original mine was approved with conditions, those conditions continue to be in effect, even if it's put in this district. So whatever was done before, the conditions that the mine was approved on before still are in effect. regardless of it being
Yep.
assigned in the mining district. Does that make sense? So if it was approved before the mining district existed, like when it was conditional use or a special exception in the ag district before we did the ordinance amendments, those conditions still apply, just making it clear.
Do they have to come in for a different permit?
No. Just whatever's on file for those conditions continue to be in effect. I mean, I think we know that, but just making that clarification. If you don't think it's necessary, then we can take it out.
So what does it mean if it gets placed in this district?
Well,
What
when
district?
the mining district, so before, right, mining activities, non-metallic mining activities were a special exception in the ag district. And then when we rewrote the ordinances like a decade
Oh,
ago,
I see.
we created a mining district.
Then to move it into mining district, the same stuff stays.
Same stuff still applies.
Okay, just it's
Wouldn't
blurred.
it still need a CUP even in the mining district?
If it's a new one,
If
yep.
it's a new one, okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So if the area was mined and it stopped being mined and in 10 years it's sold, they should have to come in and get an operating permit for that mine, correct?
Yes, anything after a year.
And they would have to get a reclamation permit
Yeah.
from Land and Water and.
Okay.
That's all after 1 year if it's
I was
set
just
aside.
not
Yeah,
saying like, once it's good, it's good.
no,
Forever.
no, if it's not used for a year,
Yeah.
you have to come back. So
But
that's,
as long as it's still being used and then goes to the mining district, they don't need to come back.
Right, just operate under the
Yeah.
conditions that were approved before.
Unless they make a substantial increase to the
Right, yeah.
line or something that
It's
is.
just, yeah, the ones that were in existence and stay in their same form. Yep.
okay, so that will be an added at number 3, okay.
Good.
Yeah, delimited, yeah, okay.
All right. Page 39. I just highlighted all this fun stuff from Chairman O'Connell. You wanted to discuss the parking regulations.
Yep, to make it more the same, yes.
Make it consistent. So this is a section in the comprehensive ordinance that's talking about parking. There's a couple other places that talk about parking too. But in the comprehensive section, this is what we have for parking regulations.
So my concern was the multiple family dwelling, those, I mean, we have camping spaces have to have 2. Yet we have dwellings with only one. So I think all these ones probably should be at least 2.
Each unit should have 1 + 1.
Multifamily dwelling has 1 + 1 above whatever the dwelling is providing for. So if you have a 4-plex, then you gotta have 5 spaces, I believe.
Well, that's not enough.
No, see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I thought it's 1 + 1 per unit. Per door.
No, and the 1 plus was just 1 extra overall.
That's not enough.
See, so that's what I'm saying. Do we need
So 2 per family.
2 per family?
Yeah.
Same as the camping one, So I was thinking, we would have 2 and maybe, so if it was a 4-plex, you'd have 8, and then you'd still have the 1 visitor one or handicap one. Okay, business one,
1 off-street parking space per 300 square feet of sales floor area.
that might be all right to leave the 1 on that one, on number 2.
Theaters, churches, auditoriums, lodges, fraternity halls, and similar places of public assemblage,
Yeah.
1 parking space per 7 seats in the theater or church.
Now, the motel, hotel, I don't know. I mean, we don't have a lot of them that are huge or anything, but that's only a single too. So I mean, some of that commercial stuff should be all right. Restaurant, that one is a 1, funeral homes is a 1, bowling alleys.
Yeah, 1 per 50 square feet of floor space.
Number 8's pretty open-ended. Service station, we've had a couple. We've had one that said 15 and they got 40 vehicles right now. Right on Highway 8. That's a tough one.
Yeah, so there's no specific threshold there for number 8.
No, I mean, they come in for a CUP and that's what that one did. That's one of our zoning violations. But I mean, the guy asked for 15 and he's got 40, you know, they're out in the weeds and everything else parked everywhere.
Sure.
And it's an obvious one, isn't it? So that, because that's under a CUP, then we would deal with it at that time, would we not?
You could, yep. Mhm.
So that would be a condition for a CUP. So that would, we could leave it as is, because it might be a pretty small garage or something, or limited space or whatever.
That's an allowed use in the commercial zoning district though, right? Garages and service stations, pretty sure. So,
Do we want to put something on it then? Open-ended, when you just say adequate,
mhm.
what's adequate? You know,
As long as they can keep them off the road.
yeah, that's what we're saying. So I mean, that gets pretty messy.
It's kind of a case by case scenario then,
Yeah, all right.
unless you want to set a threshold there.
You're much for suggestions. I don't know how we. Service station, if it has what? Well, like the guy said, you know, he's got 3 doors, he's got 15 vehicles and all of a sudden he's got 40. Yeah, so where do you go? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Would that be a time frame?
How long they can sit.
You know, if you have one waiting for repairs that you're just parting out, waiting for repairs, how long can it sit there
Yeah,
before it becomes a salvage?
before it becomes a junkyard, is what we're saying almost. Some of these, if it's not a garage if you're parting vehicles out. You know, now it falls under what?
Well,
What do we call it?
vehicle ordinance would
Yeah.
probably,
We've got, what is it, three or more inoperable,
just one, right?
Just one.
just
You
one?
can have one unlicensed inoperable vehicle without being considered a junkyard,
Yeah,
which if people are bringing their vehicle to get
Busted.
fixed, most of them are licensed. I guess they're not probably technically operable if they're getting fixed, but.
That's licensed though.
but it's licensed.
Licensed, yeah.
It's when they have 10 of them and they're stripping them down and
Yeah.
stuff. It's got a different definition, you know, more of a junkyard definition or a,
And it's a conditional use and
that's where we would try to catch it. Yeah.
A junkyard, yeah.
I
Yep.
didn't know if you needed more licensed vehicles waiting to be repaired.
I think we're starting to get deep into somebody's business again. It's not really our business.
We can. They start junking that many vehicles, they'll, you know,
Yeah, so if they have 30 vehicles waiting to be serviced, they need to be able to have 30 spots for it.
Yeah.
Serviced, yeah. And that's the way I would read number 8.
okay. Well, we run into a lot of problems. We'll have to deal with it. The industrial one, I think, is all right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I just thought the single family and the camping and all those were so different that it was
Well, the single family, yeah, there just
Yeah.
wasn't enough parking. period.
not
I
enough
mean,
parking for those.
At home, you need one spot, but if you go camping, you have to have 2.
Yeah, it just didn't make a lot of sense that way.
Let's see. While we're talking about parking, can you just scroll down to 46? This is the travel trailer park, so this is 2 automobile sites here. Just something you highlighted, Kim, I just wanted to bring it up. This is what the regulations are for travel trailer
Yeah.
parks, 2 automobile sites. Lots. So I didn't think you needed any changes to that. It's just showcasing what you.
Show where it was. Yeah, I think I marked it so I could find it.
Yeah.
Again. Yep.
Okay. Go up to 44. Went up. One more, just a little bit. There you go. Okay. So this green highlight, scroll down, so plumbing, if installed, conforms to the county sanitary code, then, yep. This one, 16, must meet the minimum lot requirements at time of lot creation. Those, are in the shoreline provisions too for bunkhouses, but not here. So I wasn't sure if there was a reason why there are different regulations for bunkhouses in the general provisions versus, shoreline. So I put them in here as, I thought maybe they were an oversight.
Okay.
Do we have any language for accessory dwelling units? So something that you could have a cooking facility in?
No, bunkhouses are functioning as our accessory dwelling units, so they're not meant to be split off or segregated out from the original parent parcel, but it's allowing a secondary space for habitation. We can talk about cooking facilities too.
But not as a rental unit or a full-time live.
Right. So I mean, I guess I don't understand why we don't allow an oven in them. I mean, if I've got a bunkhouse above my garage, I can have all of those things in my garage. So does it really matter if it's on, can I say the bottom floor or the second floor? And at the end of the day, I can buy something to make, I can buy a crock pot to make whatever I can make in the oven, in the crock pot, or in this, or in that, or in something else. I can make the same food, so why not just say, you can have an oven? Okay, I'm fine without a dishwasher, take it to the house, or wash it in the sink, or, you know, whatever. I just think we're splitting hairs and saying, you know, we talked about last night, it was, I believe, of not looking in somebody's window. Well, what are we doing when we're saying you're gonna be on the second floor and you can't have an oven? How are we gonna know without looking in the windows, so to speak? And I can make everything in something other than an oven in the same room.
I mean, an air fryer is the move, you know.
Pizza.
Yes, I mean, so any food you want to say that you can make in an oven, I can make it in something else in that room legally. So
Yeah, this is a holdover, right, from when we first originally brought bunkhouses to be considered as to a distinguishing feature between it and a dwelling. And we have all these other things that say it can't be split, it can't be rented, it can't be coming out lot, that kind of stuff. It can't be the first building on a lot. So a lot of distinguishing language that prevents it from becoming a separate dwelling in the future. So,
Is there a square footage requirement?
yes, 1,000 square feet.
1,000 square feet?
That was up, yeah.
It was 400.
I think, here's my thought. We don't go inside and check anything else, public safety.
Yeah.
If there's a deal, we have, the building inspector. We have Health and Human Services. Those guys come and check like for, the rentals and stuff. I don't know if we should be deciding what happens inside. I think we should just strike the line.
I think your policy discussion the last time when you put that into place was you didn't want really just in effect to make a single family home really a multiple family area.
Yeah.
And so that was a policy decision that you guys made the last time. And then you were weighing that against the need for housing and the lack of housing
Yeah.
and stuff. So certainly in your wheelhouse to decide what you want to recommend to the county board as far as whether this policy is good or not.
Can we go up and just redo this whole policy quick? Like, cause I seriously, like, there's such a housing shortage crisis, affordability. If I want to build a little place for my mom to live for 3 months while she's home from Arizona, I should be able to do that on my property. Like, I think 1,000 square feet is, oh, that's the maximum. What's the minimum?
I don't think,
There isn't one. for
There
this.
is no minimum.
no.
Well, there was a 700 minimum because
It was a
otherwise
400.
you're building fish houses for people.
For an actual dwelling, yep.
Okay, so
create
this
a
is
separate
small.
dwelling.
This could be smaller than that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right?
I think the minimum dwelling 700, isn't it?
Allows 400.
Or 400.
700 if it's 2 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be up to the, uniform dwelling code, because it has to meet compliance with that, and they do have a minimum, so. I think that,
You know, and you got handicap accessible, all that to try to fit into a fish shack.
Yeah.
So I mean, it gets pretty tight.
Problem that I see is the same thing we had when we started this, is because everywhere you drove, there was already bunkhouses.
Yeah,
You know, people were building a garage and then they were tipping the roof
Yeah.
up, and there was a.
the new kind of trusses
bunkhouse
came,
in it.
yeah, the bonus trusses.
And all of a sudden it became a bunkhouse. And so it's like, if you tell them they can't have a kitchen, Brad, they're gonna have a kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no, exactly. And that's my point. Yeah.
That's what
They
I'm
have
saying.
To have
I'm thinking just strike
sewer,
it.
and they can have a bathroom in the garage. Well, you know, they have a sewer already. So I
Yeah.
mean, you can't really hardly stop any of that.
And why, if it beats code, why are we saying that you can't lease it, rent it, or use it as a residence?
Because then you have two homes on one lot.
Yeah.
Density.
They didn't want these to become tourist rooming house things either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you want your mom to come and stay in it, I really don't care.
Well, she's not sitting there for free.
That's, oh, you are a nice guy. He is a nice guy. I don't understand him. He is a nice guy.
Are we looking at people's windows then? What's it matter? If it meets the code and is safe.
I'm saying we should strike it because we don't right now go inside any buildings as zoning. That we just
Yeah.
strike that line.
We can get a special inspection warrant if we believe there's a violation and go in, but we have to have a warrant, just like,
And I think that would be the health people, if it's a health concern or something that they're cooking in there. I just don't see us,
If it burns to the ground, you know they were cooking.
yeah,
I think this is gonna have a huge impact.
really. You don't think people are doing it already? You walk into some
Now
of
they're gonna
these,
do it out in the open.
you walk into, it's got a garage door on it. It's not a garage. I
No.
mean,
No.
I walk into the one the guy just put up, I mean, it cost him 550,000. Obviously, he's got every amenity you can imagine, and the garage doors are for looks. Because you walk in there, the floors are glazed, everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And it's
think,
called a bunkhouse.
I think for us to bury our head in the sands and think there's not a stove in a bunkhouse is truly the definition of sticking our heads in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody's gonna do it. Yep, there's that.
If it's not even
Funny,
mentioned,
funny,
how
it's
do we
just
know?
the size for a stove to fit in.
I think that would be more up to a building inspector that they would do it that way.
Good luck with that.
No. I mean, I think, 6 is kind of a no-brainer that it stays, I mean, if plumbing is installed, it
Yeah.
should
It has to,
probably
yeah.
meet code.
Well, that's a state requirement. Any new
Yeah.
plumbing, that's state. So I mean, that's, we just have to state too. Because if they do install plumbing inside the building, they have to have a building inspector too for that. So anything done that way, they have to have it.
Yeah.
So then it's electrical, all that. So I'm thinking we should just, I think it's being done more than we think.
Yeah.
I can't think of one that doesn't
I think
have,
it's being done ever.
I can't
occasionally.
think of one.
It's not being done.
Yeah.
I think the plans will change, because I mean, people have changed their plans a lot when the cooking facilities aren't allowed. I've seen plans come in and then tell them that, cooking facilities are, because I think the idea originally was, once you set up your whole kitchen, it's gonna be used as a residence, is what my interpretation of it. But that's just my.
Great.
I think there's a lot of 2.5, 3 foot wide spaces left there that are holding a stove today.
A lot of closets.
Yeah.
Maybe, but if it's not broke, I mean, do we need to fix it? Like if it is maybe tailoring some of those to just be living quarters and those type of things, because I do agree with the statement that all you're doing now in the future is setting these things up to then come back and to be utilized as tourist rooming houses. And if you don't live next to one, that's fine. But those people that live next to this bunkhouse or those things may come in with a different argument. So just to put that out there, that I don't know that just striking it, there's always ripple effects that, I've seen through the years that aren't always evident today, but in a year from now, it'll be, the other family coming in saying, this bunkhouse, it just something to think about, food for thought.
And they're gonna lose their license if they get caught renting.
Well, right, but, and I agree, now we have some, enforcement, we have some staff that's gonna be able to do that, but we also have over 960 square miles in the county, and it's a lot, and there's gonna definitely be more, you're trying to collaborate more with towns and things to help do some of these things, but I'm just saying, if it's not broken, if we're already seeing in office that some things are being changed when this comes to light, that maybe you can't have a stove, perhaps it's, perhaps it's not the worst thing in the world to have.
I still think it's the worst thing in the world to have, because I'm gonna put it there. It's
It's fine.
a fact of life. If I want a stove, I'm gonna put one there.
Yeah.
And there again, we're just saying, all we're doing is saying, go make your food in a different fashion. Or put your stove in the garage below the bunkhouse, because that's perfectly legal. Well then,
Then,
huh?
do we want to vote on
What
that?
consensus do we want it in or out?
The cooking,
Yeah,
I want it out.
you want it out, Doug,
Out.
Oh,
Tracy?
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, it's just so it can't be all the same. Okay, it's out.
I agree with Sarah. I understand what she's saying. I don't, because I don't want to sound like they are. It's just that it's gonna happen anyway.
Yeah.
And whether the people, we've dealt with first room.
If I'm building a $500,000 bunkhouse, I'm putting a stove in.
Yeah. If not two,
Throwing out some devil's advocate.
stackable. All right. So that'll be in both,
Yes,
get to the shoreline. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, I won't need to cover it again. So, good. 48.
Did we change one?
Must be a different 48. Oh, there is one. There was one underlined.
So some of that'll change because that's the Board of Adjustment. So that's when we go through that one. Okay, 42, 41, 48 Board
Yeah,
of
so it's
Adjustment.
under the BOA, yep.
So that'll change when we go, after we go through the Board of Adjustment one.
It's the, right, WIA, number 2. Appeals to be taken within a feasible time, and one has within 30 days. All right.
Feasible, who come up? I thought it was reasonable. Now it's feasible?
Well,
Kill it.
there's 2 different provisions, so we could
Yeah.
look at all of them if you want. You want to move into the BOA stuff now? Malia? Sure.
Are we done? Is the general done though?
Aside from this BOA stuff, yep, the general is done.
The general's done because then it was just page 50 that passing upon and reviewing stays.
Yep.
And that would have been the last markup in the general.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have that up there too, or just hand it out?
I handed out the BOA, but we have it up here.
Okay.
So now this one it'll apply to general and shoreline?
Right, so in your current Muni code, you have BOA information in 3 different spots. One is in chapter 2, which is really far away from your zoning, which is 42. So it's way up in chapter 2 in administration. And that's where the meat of the Board of Adjustment information is housed. Then there's also a small BOA subsection in general zoning and a small BOA section in shoreline zoning. They are not consistent with each other. So I think what we should do is go through the Board of Adjustment as it exists in administration, maybe move that down to 42 and take out the BOA information that is sparsely put inside specifically shoreline and comprehensive zoning. And the reason is because it shouldn't be different in different spots, whether you're dealing with the Board of Adjustment through the shoreline or comprehensive. I mean, the BOA should just be doing what the BOA does regardless of which ordinance they're dealing with, right? And so in front of you is the section that's in chapter 2. And there's just a few changes, like saying that an attorney can be a woman and not just a man in section 2-170. So I just thought that might be good, because it only said the county attorney or his designated representative. I just added or her. We could also put their in there instead of his or her, but I digress. Then it talks about when the Board of Adjustment has outside counsel appointed, like this last Blue Rock Quarry situation where I represent this committee and this committee was being appealed. Clearly, then I couldn't have advised this committee and then go up and advise the Board of Adjustment, because my duty is to represent my initial client, which of course was the Environmental Services Committee. So it just makes it clear that when there's a conflict, outside attorney can be appointed for the Board of Adjustment. And that's what happened this last go round. In the meetings, just clearing up on the next page, that closed session.
Is that D, how that, I mean, I see it says advice of counsel shall be received, entered into the minutes. Closed session minutes can be put into that.
Right, because without the closed session, it would say that the advice of counsel goes in the minutes, which would be open to the public. Well, that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So, you could put sealed minutes or,
No, that's,
okay. And then on the next page in section 2-172B, this just articulates that you can have a closed session only when authorized. The language in here previously allowed the Board of Adjustment to call a closed session to deliberate after a public hearing, and that's contrary to the open meetings law. So that's just cleaning that up. They wouldn't be allowed to do that. A quorum, section 2-173. This is cleaning up the situation with alternates. Currently, we have a 5-member board with 2 alternates when it's fully, when there's a full appointment to that board. Right now, the alternates can't help it count towards a quorum. So that limits the BOA's ability to do business, especially if, let's say, a couple of the BOA members have a conflict and they step down. Tim Lauk stepped down from the Blue Rock Quarry appeal because he had given advice to one of the applicants at some point in his capacity as a private attorney. We've got a realtor on there that arguably should be recusing themselves during certain types of cases. So if you have people recusing themselves and then the alternates don't count toward the quorum, how would they be able to do business? So that's just a suggestion to clean that up. And then, as you recall, the outside attorney opined that the Board of Adjustment lacked the jurisdictional authority to hear conditional use appeals from this committee. That's incorrect based upon case law, and that was shared, but this cleans it up so that even a layperson who's reading this will know that the Environmental Services Committee decisions can be appealed to the Board of Adjustment. Now, having said that, you also have the statutory authority, because this law changed, to say, you know, appeals from our committee on conditional use, they should go straight to the circuit court. And I don't want the BOA to be administrative way to try to overturn this committee's decision. That's something you can do now that you couldn't do a couple of years ago because the laws changed. So that's a policy decision on your part. Now on
so
the,
they can skip, you know. Blue Rock is about the only one that's has skipped the BOA, isn't it?
yeah, and actually the predecessor to the Blue Rock, back when there was the original case, that also skipped based upon a
The first one.
similar circumstance. Yeah.
But that's been about the only ones in Polk County that have skipped and went straight to court.
Right, because they heard your appeal of a denial of a tourist rooming house, I think.
Yeah.
Recently. So right now, the main job of the Board of Adjustment is to hear variance requests and then to appeal a decision of like the zoning administrator, like next week when they're going to be hearing question about issuance of the permit for that cell tower. And then on the
So any administrative appeal, so then is it in here that we're administrative? That's why it can go from us to the BOA.
I added that.
Is that, oh,
Make
you,
it
okay,
clear, yeah.
that is added, all right, so that's what makes it clear that it goes
It makes
there.
it clear, but even without that, there's case law clearly stating that the decision of a zone committee or a planning commission can be appealed to the Board of Adjustment. It's very clear, even without that, but this makes it more clear. On the last page, in this section, it says appeals shall be taken within a feasible time. In another subsection, I believe it was in the shoreland section of the Board of Adjustment, it said within 30 days of the decision. I suggest we change this to 30 days because what is feasible for one person is not feasible for another. So,
So we're, take that word feasible out of the front part too there. There was another spot, wasn't there?
That same language is in the general zoning provisions too, right?
feasible is in two places and the 30 days was in one.
Take the feasible out for sure.
And then we would be adding this, I think, to another subsection of chapter 42 and just call it Board of Adjustment, taking it out of chapter 2 and moving it down to
Chapter 2 and moving it, okay.
correct. And then just striking completely the Board of Adjustment information in the two zoning codes.
So we would take 42, 148 would be out of the general. That whole section,
Yes.
Makes the most sense.
that would, oh, how is it referred to then to get to the BOA? How is it referred to in each section then?
So if you, what do you mean, how is it referred to?
Well, I mean, you go through
Sure.
all this, revocation is in here, this, how do we refer to the BOA or appeals?
Can we
Or does
pull
that
up,
go,
Claire, would you be able to pull up
does that
the
go,
code? Sorry,
Does
and go
that
to
go,
chapter 42.
that goes into notice of proceedings and hearings, and then it would go into effective and appeal. So it'd go like 42, 174 would be where it goes to.
Adjustment
Mhm.
ordinance.
42.
Yeah, that's in 42. Ah,
174 effective appeal or the 173 or filing an appeal. 42, 172.
So it's in Article 1 and Article 3, correct? Yes.
It was in two additional places.
Yeah. So if you go to Article 1, so 42-1,
Which,
Well, in the,
Yeah.
in the big one.
oh, in the big mini, in the big book.
in the big book, yeah.
Okay, but now we have filing an appeal too in 42, 172. We have to make sure that goes with it too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all part of that ordinance. The reason why it was placed in the multiple sections, I don't really know, but it all refers back to this, to the 42. I mean, wherever it refers to an appeal or the Board of Adjustment, then would just slide down into this 42.
right, because
Into this one that we have here.
Yes.
It would all go, okay, so even the 42, 172 would get just referred these last few pages.
We'll save some money on the Muni code because we're deleting a bunch of those pages.
Right. Got to renumber the whole section, so they'll get us either way. So now, from 42, 172, it's filing an appeal, notice proceedings, hearings, all that. Does that stay
it
in the
would-
general right now?
yes.
Okay, now, did we go through that it's the same as this now? That the procedures and all this are right?
The procedures that are listed, and I believe that's in the shoreland section, correct?
I am in general right now at 42, 172, filing an appeal. Did we go through those to make sure that they align with everything else that we're doing?
Back up to this before we get too far away, because I got a question. So we can, a decision by this board we can say it has to go right to the court instead of the BOA.
Yep, that's a change in the law. Let me pull that up.
So I don't know that I'm necessarily for it. I just want to have the conversation of, I do have a problem at times that the BOA is just an appointed board.
Right.
You know, if somebody hates what this board makes, they can run against us, vote against us. We're, at that point, we can be held accountable. The BOA has no accountability whatsoever to the general public. And so I struggle at times saying, we make a decision. we send it to 3 or 5 other individuals who are just appointed from around the county, and they flip our decision. And I don't, it doesn't matter what the decision is about, is that there's really no consequences back to them. You know, I mean, the only consequences to us is there's an election at some point down the road, or they can call us up and holler and scream at us. But we're sending it off to a board to hear the same thing that we approved, that can turn around and say, no, the elected officials were wrong.
Right.
Well, they can only change it based on section 156. If they're asking for the variance, they can only change it based on those 5 items. They can't.
Right, but I mean, if that's kind of what we're basing it on too. So if they see it differently, if simply at the end of the day, if they see it differently than we see it, they're gonna say, hey, we think we're wrong, but we maybe still think we were right. So
And we can appeal their decision though.
Yes, you can.
Yeah,
We can appeal their
Yes.
decision.
Right,
it's happened.
yes.
But if it goes
yes.
straight to a judge, it's one person deciding it.
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't
It's to
say I
me-
was for or against.
Okay.
I don't, I
Yeah,
just
I can
wanted
see
the
both.
conversation.
Yeah, I can
You say we could end up with a judge I'm not supposed to name from St. Croix County, and it could be years
Yeah.
on end before this happens.
And we digress. The one, I mean, any zoning board has to have, you know, there needs to be a way to appeal decisions either administratively or by the board.
Yeah.
So, but I
I got my discussion and that's all I was,
I'm just
that's all I
hoping
was
that,
Yeah,
after.
no, I'm with,
that we're changing this, that 42, the filing, the notice proceeding hearings and all that falls into line.
consistent. Yep, just for consistency.
Yeah, and the effect of the appeal and that. Because we do have hearing procedures in here now, which helps a lot of people and decisions of the board, all that. If they, do they pretty much fall in line? Do you think everything stays
Yeah,
without having, I just got this today.
yeah, I don't think there's any need
There's
to change it.
anything that changed. Okay.
Is there more you can talk about for the BOA? Is that it? Okay. All right, moving on to shorelines.
That should have killed a lot. I'm just gonna go through this. 72. To see if it does. Yep, okay. Do we need a short break? Anybody else? We're good, okay.
Anything clarification wise or any update you need for this, Chairman O'Connell? This was one of your.
No, they said that's whatever. Yes, we're good.
Okay. Next page, the highlighted statute stuff here. The towns of St. Croix Falls, Garfield and Farmington. I think you were just highlighting them to showcase that those were the ones that were unzoned.
That have their own zoning,
Yeah.
that have their own, and that's because, and that, actually, that comment come up that she talked about the tower and stuff.
Telecommunications.
Because that's some other time.
Yeah.
And the farmland was just to show that the conflicts and different things that we did that.
Okay. Page 4. This is the stuff we already talked about. Page 18. Again, this was your highlight from previous version, Supervisor O'Connell. Just,
Yep, that's that rezoning
yep,
from
just leave it alone.
chapter 91 and that, because it's zoning district, yeah, because then we had the other ones were zoning, were farmland plans, yes.
Okay. Page 27. And this was a highlight from you, Chairman O'Connell. Is there any discussion you need to have on this, or is it just a note that you wanted to reference?
That just came out again at the state level, so that could be an interesting one. I think we're gonna leave it in there.
Yep.
So back on page 23, we skipped over that, we just took some of that out, with that board of supervisors and thing was in.
Yeah, it's the same exact stuff from the comprehensive.
Same word, so we just moved
Yep.
it.
So it's updated in both spots.
And then, how far are you? 23, you added the 3 towns that have their own zoning in that,
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
that's in there, all right. What's that by?
Uh, Page 37, 38, 41. Draw parking regulations again. Maybe the top one we were talking about, number 1 there, dwellings, 1 space per
Yep,
dwelling.
that one we changed to 2 and then, so that should have a 2 in it.
Had 2 circled by that one from the last meeting too, I don't know. Tourist cabins.
Oh, and tourist cabins was it?
So 3 tourist cabins, I would say, are a little different than motels, because I just, mine from last month had 2 circled by cabins on it.
Okay,
You know, not necessarily motels.
okay. Number 3. Split those out maybe? And
Yeah, I don't know.
Tourist
I'm just
cabin.
going with what I have. The tourist cabins, last meeting, we talked about having 2 spaces for them, you know, rather than just 1.
Right.
So motels and tourist cabins are 1, maybe just put 2 for both.
I don't know if motel.
I don't think motels need to.
Okay.
It's a lot of it. I mean, because typically,
Because you're gonna have some rooms not occupied, so you're gonna have
Yeah.
additional parking.
So you'll
Yeah.
have some.
Keep
Could leave
those
them on the
ones.
same.
yeah, I think
be two.
motels could stay at 1 and tourist cabins should probably,
Should be at 2.
Can leave them
Yeah.
on the same line, but just put in parentheses, which for which. 1 for motels and 2 for cabins.
yeah.
It's for the parking,
Warehouse.
just a little bit. That matches the comprehensive 5 there. I think those are in line with what's in the general zoning provisions. Okay. Anything else on that? Otherwise, we go on to 41. There. Again, this is manufactured home parks. 2 spots for that, so it's consistent now, right?
Yep, the 2 for there, yep.
Yep. Page 42.
Question. If we go back to page 39, Tim,
Sure.
maybe I'm just reading this wrong somewhere along the way. Okay, I think I was, forget it.
Yeah, 42.
42 or 43. 42, that's,
This was just a highlight, right, from last time, Chairman O'Connell?
this was a highlight to maybe push a little harder on the permits so that they, when they come in, they look a little
Yeah.
better.
Enforce that piece.
Cause I've looked up a few older permits. A lot of them are just hand drawn and they're a mess sometimes to read.
Okay, so just ensure that's happening, administrative.
And that next,
Page 40.
the next one is where the conditional use. Violation.
Yeah,
Property revoked permit shall require to wait 12. Yep, okay.
and I think this provision number 3 here, violations of this conditions shall be deemed a violation as our article result of immediate revocation. It was conflicting before, but it seems like it's compatible now with how we have the language written for revocation. So I think that's why it was highlighted before by you.
Yep,
So we should be good there.
because it was two different, yeah, it was a waiting period and something else that we don't have anymore.
So did we ever, back to retaining walls, did we ever figure out what we're putting? Just so I know, because now we're in the shoreline.
Eric did send an additional text I was going to share quickly if I could.
Yep, yep.
He just said that, let me just get our stormwater and erosion control ordinance exempts construction of residential, but can kick in on areas of disturbance of 1/2 acre or more in shoreland zone. That site and most sites like it don't disturb, on 1/2 acre or more, so our ordinance does not catch it. You could consider adding horizontal distance between single rows, set upslope, like single rows set in series upslope with a horizontal distance no less than X feet. I suggest 12 or more feet as a minimum horizontal distance apart. So I mean, like something 12 feet. That was just his suggestion. I don't know, Logan, you might want to weigh in. I just something that's easily administered or, that's and enforceable
Yeah, it's,
and clear.
yeah.
So that language was thrown out by Eric. Otherwise, just having something simple and they're like, it's at about 24 inch. I don't know if Logan has any other additional thoughts on that.
Well, if we had up to 24 inches and 12 feet apart.
Of 12 feet apart upslope.
Yeah. I mean, keep it as simple as that. I mean, that's, if you read it, I guess, if there's a number there,
Right. Because,
24 or less, I mean, it doesn't have to be 20.
right. Does that make sense as far as
And 12
administering?
feet.
Okay.
I mean, at least have something in there.
Yeah.
So what page? That's,
12 feet of each other, then that counts as.
Yeah, something like that.
So that would be the language that would be in the shoreline area,
Shoreline only.
not,
That makes sense.
Right.
not in general.
So can I have rocks on my property in the shoreline that aren't retaining walls?
sure.
So if I just want to put a rock on the corner of my steps or the corner of my boathouse or. Okay,
As long as they're less than
You
12.
can't have a boathouse on your property though. Seal the deal there. You can't have a boathouse.
Is
Well, there's one
Are we putting the 12 inches in there?
Yeah, but that's used as like that's
24
more
inch.
Supervisor Hall, that's more if you're using it to like retain or like hold back earth. Some people have those large boulders just set there with their house number etched in them and things.
Sure.
Flower bed.
A flower bed or something.
And they're all,
They're free.
Pretty well flower beds in it, yeah.
right.
so do we have anywhere in here, because I don't think we do, who we notify of when someone comes in and asks for a CUP or a variance within the shoreline district? So I mean, so that the lakeshore districts get notified that, hey, Brad Olson's going to do this. He's asked for a CUP or a variance
Oh, yeah, everybody,
in a retaining.
adjoining landowners, the town, the lake association, there's a whole list of people that Nicole,
Public
and
notice.
That's all in the ordinance
it's all in ordinance.
that requires that notification.
Yeah,
I think lake districts are listed, is it not?
yeah.
I think so. I think they're notified, they just don't read it. It's like everybody else that comes in that says on a CUP, I just heard about that from my neighbor. It's been in the paper for 3 months, but all of a sudden, I just heard this from my neighbor. We gotta show up.
Lake districts have their own shorelines, don't they?
Some,
Think some
it depends on if it's a,
class 1 or 2 lake.
and what kind of authority that, they if they have the taxation authority and things, but yeah, sometimes they have different regulations. Actually, no, I don't think that they do. Any lake districts really have any additional regulations.
I don't think they can do land use regulations.
It's more a taxing authority or not.
So they could propose to do some like aquatic plant mitigation or removal, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, or water
yeah.
quality improvements, treatment of phosphorus, that kind of stuff through that tax money.
Yeah, and certainly
land use.
they tend to be our eyes and ears out there, you know, when we're
Sure.
getting information from each lakes.
Says that, but it doesn't say lake associations in ours.
I think it should. Is that way, if
The
they're not
environmental
notified, we
services-
can just say that, well, it's not in our ordinance.
It's 300 feet. The Department of Natural Resources within 10 days, and all property owners within 300 feet of the site. So maybe that's on page 44. Notice of public hearing, right under the one where we're at, page 44, number 4, towards the bottom. Right there at the notice, maybe the land, if any, if any, if there, if there is a lake district to be notified.
Right.
Should
Yeah,
maybe
whoever
add
it is, it needs to
just
be,
be
because at this
included in
stage-
writing in there so that we have it.
Yeah, because right now we're saying we don't have to notify them
No,
because it's
It's
not,
not
because they're not listed. So if they're not listed, we're not necessarily, even if we are, we're not required to. And, I think it's
should
very
be added
important.
in number 4, it should be added any lake district then.
Yeah,
Okay.
Is that just covering conditional use permits though? Is there a different variance portion of that?
It's under
I think
conditional, attached to conditional use permits, yep, for public notice. I think a regular permit coming in, I don't think you have to send out to everyone.
right, but I mean, for conditional use or.
Variances, yeah.
Yeah,
It is our due process, but we can add that language. I would think that wouldn't be any problem.
yeah. So it's not for every regular permit, no. That would be, oh my God,
But that would be,
Yeah, we don't have
almost 1,000 permits. I mean, you gotta be sending,
over.
you have to have a post office in there.
Staff. I needed an administrator.
Permits and variances, is that what we're talking about though, for those two?
Well, on this, it's under conditional, attached to conditional use permit, so it's the notice for public hearing.
We could find the spot for variances too and add it there if that's what you're asking for.
Yes.
I would think it'd be in both, yes. Because Board of Adjustment sent out too. Well, that's where, in this part is that one, yeah, okay.
Unless there's other questions on the comprehensive and shoreline, the things I wanted to highlight. The rest of
so do,
amendments,
there again, I think it's tied to this, but we have a system, I mean, Mo talked about last night, the system for highway for me to call and say, just go online and say, here's a pothole on this county road. Do we have that kind of system where someone can just file a complaint with the environmental, whatever zoning, land and water, whatever it is? And if not, I mean, is it out of the realm to think
That we can get there.
that we can get there?
It's not out of the realm to think that we can get there. Is that system in place currently and functioning well? I don't know.
we have a complaint form that's available online that people can fill out and turn in, but I don't know if you can submit it online. Can you submit it via email?
Yeah, you can submit it by email, but yeah, it's not fillable, I don't think.
Right.
But yeah, that enforcement procedures that I think you guys had done is, yeah, that requires the complaint form. Well,
It requires to
have the person put their name on it right now.
put their name, see, so many are anonymous.
Oh, yeah,
And
no.
they just flood
That's
it.
where I was headed next. We're not into anonymous complaints.
And we get,
That's my,
it gets flooded.
my thing exactly. So as hard as we try to be anonymous about these complaints, it's not happening. I mean, we can call on the town level and do the complaints. The homeowner calls up as soon as they get a call from the county saying, hey, you're out of compliance here. Who turned me in? Well, it was the town clerk that called. Excuse me, but what happened to the anonymous part of this?
There is,
Well, anytime there's a record it's a public record. So if there's, somebody sends an email complaining, we can't withhold that.
If it's
somebody
verbal
says.
though, I mean,
If you say it's anonymous, but there's no obligation.
There's no way to
The
back.
only way to be truly anonymous is to write something on a piece of paper and slip it under the door when nobody's looking and hope nobody has a handwriting expert, you know?
I mean, that's the thing. I think that's why a lot of people aren't saying anything is because, yeah, you don't want your neighbor to get by with this, but at the same token, you don't want your neighbor mad because you're the one that ratted him out. You know, it's like, well, we're just gonna keep letting them get by with it because we don't want to be that person. You know, I mean, it's
Get a
just,
hundred,
All the
you get
time.
100 people,
yeah, it's.
send all these different things in different names for just, for whatever reason, because they don't like the person.
Yeah, it goes the other way too. If I
Yeah.
don't like my neighbor now, every time he does something, I
I'm
just
gonna-
call the county and say, hey, you gotta check on Jim because he's doing this again
Then they're gonna call
tomorrow.
each other and it'll just be back and forth.
Yeah.
So if you can't step up and say, okay, I seen this happen, or be a witness to it, it pretty much didn't happen. It's just court law, it's hearsay.
I know.
We have a
but
lawyer,
it
it'd be
doesn't make
hearsay,
it
wouldn't it?
easy.
Right,
It'd be
because we
worthless.
wouldn't, right.
It would be nothing. You'd come into court and go, okay, I heard it from
So the
Joe
only
Blow said
thing
this,
that
this.
legally be anonymous is the reporting of child abuse or neglect. You're legally not allowed to disclose who the reporter was. But the reporter of a zoning violation or any other law rule violation, somebody calls in and says, hey, the car in front of me is speeding, or, you know, all of those are, there's no protection for the reporter.
I know.
So caller ID, just call it on your phone. They know exactly who
So
it
I'm
is.
done. I'm not doing it no more. This is gonna be a free for all.
Well,
Maybe we get less complaints.
Just have no fear. Okay,
All right, everything else for
shoreline, if,
subdivision, rural addressing, shoreline comprehensive or the general zoning. I just assumed the rest of it was stuff that you guys thought was
I
okay.
think all those were good, I guess. Are we gonna leave our renewable energy one alone then?
That was a question I had for you. Since you got testimony or you had information presented to you last month or last meeting, you want to consider that now or do you want to wait for that?
Going forward.
What does everybody think? Let it go for a little more, let it sink in deeper?
Is that possible?
Yeah, let's wait another meeting on that part. Yeah. I'll make that decision. That's good. Because we're getting to where we're just gonna not care.
You done that anonymously, didn't you?
I
Tim?
did it anonymously. I did a J. Luke. I did it by hammer. I can decide that right there.
yep,
Give it to
I
him.
was, yep,
You're gonna do that?
I was, but I.
Go ahead. I'll let you have some time up here.
But
I'll throw that into my division report, okay?
This is what you wanted, so I'm like, okay. then.
yes,
All right.
yes, let's go to number 8. So all we have left then is
6
that
too, right?
renewable energy one to kind of look at again.
He must not be coming.
The rest are pretty good.
Yep.
Okay,
Is Cody not coming?
Yeah, so we will, we'll package up the discussion and any of the changes to content. And then we will do the formal notice and we'll set that public hearing then for February 7th. All right, so that's the process.
so the first meeting, so February 7th is gonna be full. We'll have to kind of decide how much we're gonna take on that day.
Yeah, February 7th will be the public hearing.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Yeah, it can be. They could
Yeah,
do it if they
yeah.
wanted.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we had initially talked about. I guess like Tim said, it can be, you certainly can move it if you want.
No,
Okay.
this is rewrite season. Let's get it over.
Right, right. And that should actually kind of wrap up our ordinance revision season as I mean, you're talking about the renewable energy ordinance. That will stand as is then until the next ordinance revision season unless you decide that we're going.
We haven't really heard any huge either ways. Yeah, so I
Okay,
think,
so-
yeah.
So, okay. That's where that is at. The division right now, we're really excited to welcome Surveyor Ed Flanham to our team on January 29th after the county board action last night, making that a full-time position. He joins us on January 29th. He's actually in office today, doing some final paperwork and meeting the rest of the staff. So again, Surveyor Ed Flanham from the Amory area, if you know him at all. So excellent news. The division will also be moving forward with hiring our zoning administrator, hopefully this month. And that person will build their team accordingly. Again, after the action last night, we will move forward with a technician that's heavily geared towards just compliance issues. We do have a large backlog, and we'll be moving forward with those issues.
So Sarah, when you talk about this huge backlog, how far back are we going?
Well, we haven't.
Hopefully we're not going years back.
Not years, but we clearly haven't had a zoning administrator for almost 6 months now. And then in there, we also had some staff out for some FMLA and things. And so I think the last 5 months or so, it was clear that the focus was not going to be on compliance. That was going to be on the back burner. And that we were going to be just, processing permits and inspections and things that needed to get completed. And so that's the backlog we're talking about. But I think there's also other issues with just coming in, again, fresh eyes, looking at some things. It was mentioned last night, we have a lot of conditional use permits out there and some things that need some follow-up and some of those type of things. So the additional staff and just filling these roles is going to be helpful with that. We've had basically a 2-person team running a 5-man ship. So, I mean, it's going to be nice to fill some of these seats.
Do we know how many complaints we get a year?
Not off the cuff right now, today, but I'm sure we do have a tally of that. We do know. I did share with the committee too that I'm going to go to the Towns Association meeting on the 25th. And I think in that Towns Association meeting, one of the things I hope to do this next year is to really build up some of those relationships and use the relationship with the town also to help be some eyes and ears out there, especially in the areas that are county zoned and things. But complaints are, currently tracked, and I can get the specific number for you this last year. I think they are maybe down a little bit because of the response. So with that,
To stay on the complaint deal, just so that the public knows, I think we should say that we have an internal policy that they're scaled,
yeah, we certainly do have a
Well, that
internal
you-
process.
that we went through and made a list how to do it. So that,
Yeah, we certainly have an internal process when they come in, and they're, weighted, and then in the past, they've been kind of shared among staff.
Yep.
But now, obviously, we will have somebody that's more focused on dealing with those specifically.
so like if somebody does call and that, this is how we weigh different things. I mean,
Mhm.
one car parked out in the middle of a field, we're not gonna run out there today and take a picture and say he's got 2 cars there or something. There's more pressing thing.
Our picture at the start of the meeting would get you there fairly fast.
A little faster, yeah.
Um,
And how do we track the budget neutral part of that?
it'll be right in the permits that come in and, the revenues that are, seen by that. I wanted to point out though, like when we talk about the conditional use permits and you want to maybe have an ability to, go out and follow up on some of those things, obviously those things aren't going to provide a revenue, that's basically a community service or a part of
It's our job.
our zoning team job. So I'll be tracking it closely, and just to see where we're at, and kind of try to give updates. Know that as things come in, sheds that are built without permits, I mean, those after the fact fees and those double permit fees and things that come in. I know just looking at when we did have a compliance technician, just in a matter of 6 or 7 months, it was close to, over $30,000 or close to $30,000 in revenue that was generated, just from some of that. So it's that balance, right, between chasing just that money, because we still have all of our regular permit fees and staff is busy and going to be, doing that, and that revenue stream will still be consistent, but it's that additional compliance element that we'll be tracking closely. And just to be really honest, I feel like now we have to give it a shot. Like it's time. It's one of the first things I heard about the most, you know, about some of these compliance issues. But then again, if the person is tied down with maybe one or two issues for a really long time, you know, I mean, so it will be interesting and something that I'm sure we'll be talking about more in the future. The real property lister is rolling or has rolled our 2023 tax rollover. So, that's in the books, and I am currently learning quite a bit about our tax foreclosure process. And going to be collaborating with the Polk County Treasurer on that process and how to handle some of these properties as they come in. I guess that was transferred when I was here before. That was part of property, buildings and property. Now that is something that the Environmental Services Director has been working on. So I am learning about that as well. I wanted to let you know that we do have the BOA hearing on January 25th about the cell tower in Farmington. The town of Farmington is appealing that permit that was given. The telecommunication ordinance was changed in 2013 to just be a county blanket ordinance. It's not really a zoning ordinance. It's a county ordinance. And there was some state legislation that really heavily dictates what we can and can't regulate. And so that permit was issued. And so now it will be appealed on the 25th by the town of Farmington, because they also have their own zoning and working with Corporation Council, making sure that we did our due diligence and what we needed to do. And also I've been yesterday and today, I'm sure I will be speaking more with the clerk down there at the town of Farmington about that hearing. Just if your phones ring, just wanted to make you.
And I brought it up because it seemed odd that our BOA is looking at it
Mhm.
and they have their own zoning if they don't have a BOA, but they didn't issue a permit yet is what we, the town themselves
Did not, but the
did
county,
not issue a permit.
right, so they're
a county.
appealing our permit.
Okay.
Yeah, other than that, that's all I have for today. I know, we have our meeting on the 7th, and then we had talked about reducing down to that one meeting a month, so Supervisor or Chair O'Connell will, I guess, have that discussion at a later time. Any questions for me?
So, but that probably the 7th, we'll find out how much
Business.
we can get through in a day or whatever, but or how big that public hearing could end up.
Well, now that there's no February county board meeting, you know, you
It
don't have to be as,
aggressive.
Yeah.
But if we can get through the ordinance stuff, I think we can get down to that one meeting.
that'd be good.
To really help
Yeah.
move other stuff forward. Because then you look at it, most of this stuff is pretty well. Not quite so bad. We'll always have some public hearings in there and stuff, but we'll be caught up, I hope.
I hope.
Because the tax deed stuff is bizarre if you just started getting into it.
The changes in the law,
Oh,
but there's
it's-
now, there's some fix-it legislation out there, so we can. talk.
it's out there, but they haven't done it yet. Here we sit again. Yeah, that 5-year plan they have is not very.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
During month 2.
Yep, there you go.
All right. Thanks.
Condolences. No.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you.
So now. Work plan in February, the tree replacement annual reports. The annual reports will be from what? Amanda in Register of Deeds, in zoning, and land and water. Is that how that works?
I think it goes over everything from the previous year, so everything that they kind of did in 2023.
Not sure if that's just a look back by the department or if there's any financials tied to that, because we're not through the audit at that point. So I'm not quite sure if that's just a look back to say how many permits we issued, how many things we did in 23.
So it's not the full annual report that we usually get
I should
from
not,
each department.
correct, it shouldn't have the financials tied to it as we're still going through the audit at that point. So nothing to tie back to
So
that.
that might get moved down again. Hopefully our audit isn't now in July.
Correct,
Right.
that it's finished by April.
But,
August.
well, they started in July. It was done in August after the budget season started. That was pretty bizarre. Okay.
Do we want to move the wildlife damage crop claim program report down again then and see if,
We better find out what timeline he has for that.
It sounds like he was sick today and or sick recently and not able to come, so
okay,
Eric did talk to him and it sounds like he could be here the 7th.
okay.
Okay. So we'll have to move it to that because I think that's almost his deadline
Yeah, it's getting there.
for payments. Okay.
Oh, we're trying.
The ag people, are
They can
we
go
don't
off.
really,
We don't have them, so they.
we don't have them, so we don't even need a report if they don't want to come. Let's just X
I
them out,
think they were talked to as well, I believe, and they said they could come 7th.
cut them
Did I
off.
read that right? I think in
I
a
don't know.
conversation.
They're gonna tell us that we want to hear, or that Brad wants to hear, anything they want to hear.
Have them come, I won't be here, so,
Well, see, there you go.
I don't think they have to if they don't want to.
no,
I don't
Okay,
think we're
so
gonna
just remove that entirely.
just remove it.
yep.
Okay. And then we have another rezone, I believe, that's coming February 7th.
The months and one, yeah.
Okay.
So we would have a public hearing for the rezone and a public hearing for these ordinance.
How are we setting the times in? So if we have a public hearing at 9:30 for a rezone, did we set a time then, a different time for the
Set it.
public hearing, for this other public hearing? Do we set that for like 10 then or something?
Not contentious.
Yeah, so I'd say 15 minutes for the rezone.
I would say we better,
Or say 10 o'clock for
I
the,
would say at least go 10, give it a half hour
okay.
to be safe. It should go good.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will be here.
I'm going to, I'm not hiring the rezone out to MSA now. I believe our services with them will be limited and minimal or done.
Let's hope.
But I'll be handling that rezone, or if we have a zoning administrator on staff by then, working with them on that rezone. So it should, but I don't see it as being, but I guess I don't know. I haven't been around for a rezone for a while.
They should be better than what I think they charged. I seen some of them.
Yeah.
It's my goodness gracious.
So we could do the timber stuff before the hearings. I'm sure Brent could get that in first.
Yep.
If we want Cody to go before that too,
Yep.
and then have the hearings and then we can do the NORTAC update.
The Nortec update can probably be before that too. I think all three of them
You think
could
all three
fit
of them
in that
could
first
fit?
half hour.
Okay.
I think so.
That should be very short.
Tech is,
We will know, unless it's rescheduled, what Judge Tolan's oral ruling is on the WRA.
Go to that.
So throw that on there too.
sure.
We always have the legislative update. Do you want something more specific to this?
You mean litigation?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as we keep that on there,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know you're not on that yet, but there's nothing new to report.
Really?
I know, it's shocking. Other than we filed our brief
Sure.
yesterday,
Okay.
our final reply brief in the Court of Appeals.
All right. Well, there. That should cover us unless something else comes up. Should it not? I mean, does Land and Water have anything? They've been pretty good. Okay. All right, so I guess that annual report deal would kind of be whatever.
The annual report?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like Eric has had,
Those are too soon then? Because if there's no financials to it, I don't know.
yeah, we could delay it until March. That's absolutely
I'm
fine.
thinking, do we take the annual reports and will the audit be over by March? That, I mean, their actual real.
No.
Typically, it's the end of April
God,
is when you finally close it out. I mean, those are the numbers that have to hit for highways information going to the state and
would it make more sense to have them annual reports when there's some financial kicks to it too, or not?
Unless they're just telling us what they done last year, then it is.
About annual.
But then they have to do it again for the financial part. I'm just trying to say, let's get it down so they only have to do it once.
well, that's just it. I mean, we're talking about that at the division level also because
Oh, okay.
the annual reports, historically for a while where each department did 1 up to 5 pages and some departments were very good at doing colored photos and everything
And
else. And
We're trying to get it to a format.
and then it was to a format of the beginning of the budget book where it talks about your key indicators and the FTEs and the mission and the vision and what they predict for the next 2 years. It came back down to that. So we're talking about how to roll that out to be consistent with each department, to go back and look at that. So
To go back to that. So should we scratch ours up here?
I would
Yes,
scratch it in February and move it back down
To at least April then.
at least April, if not May,
Or maybe
because then you'll have all the financials.
Because then we know that we get a decent annual report then.
Right.
And you'll have the
And I
new
think-
And you don't have to do it twice.
Right.
I'm trying to get, so they don't come and give us a presentation, then have to do it in May again to do the financial part.
Right.
So it'd be all at once.
Yes.
So that would probably be for the whole county, all the departments, wouldn't it then?
Yes.
Probably try to shoot for May. Okay,
It'd be to have them all consistent at the same time, so the board sees them all at the same time.
yep. And
I
that
can
gets,
fix that on all of the work plan templates as well and move those annual reports down.
and then, because then it starts with the budget, then our budget season's right after that. So,
It's rolling by then.
yeah, okay,
You'll start to see fees.
I think, yeah.
Shortly after that.
okay, so let's move that one down so we get a little annual report. Okay. Well, then we're good, aren't we? Number 11.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. I want to.